Good morning and welcome to this Sunday's edition of Black Almanac. To honor Dr. Edward James II, we will air the best of Black Almanac for the next few weeks. We celebrate a man who has shaped this community to what it is today, fighting for a new election system representing everyone, taking a stand to ensure that all citizens in the city and the county have a voice in government affairs.
Good morning. I'm Ed James, and this is Black Almanac. Florida Governor Rick Scott is a proponent of charter schools, as was a former governor, Jeb Bush. Both governors promoted charters in the name of providing a quality education for all students. Two school board members in the Manatee District are Scott appointees, which would lead one to believe that they would be staunch supporters of charters, and that may be true. However, one would be hard-pressed to understand their reaction to a proposed public charter at a school whose entire student population is eligible for free or reduced lunch, and more than 20% of the students are learning English. 80% of the families of those students currently attending the school voted for conversion to a public charter school. Most Floridians believe, I would think, all our children are entitled to a quality education, as described in the Florida Constitution, even those of us who may be poor, black, or brown. Joining today's discourse, Principal Ed Hudley of the Lincoln Magnet Middle School and Reverend Charles McKenzie, a Florida Director of Rainbow Push Coalition. Well, gentlemen, I'm so glad that you all stopped by. I had to try to find out what's going on in Manatee County, and that has some people confused, sounds like to me. So, Lincoln Middle School, Lincoln Academy, what's happening?
Well, I'm excited, Dr. James, to report that Lincoln Middle School, or Lincoln Memorial Middle School, which has a rich tradition going back to the late 60s when it was converted over, is now ready for a new change. And we will be shifting from Lincoln Middle School to Lincoln Memorial Academy and operating as a charter school so that we can have the autonomy to provide some new and innovative approaches to being successful with the population we serve.
Now, some folk may wonder, they know charter is one thing, but you all proposing a public charter, is that correct?
Absolutely. There are many different charters, and oftentimes people confuse them, and it's hard to form an opinion about it unless you know which type you're dealing with. There are those charters that are completely run by private owners. There are publicly run charters, but they may be run by a management organization that oversees what happens. And then, you know, there are public charters, or in this case, a conversion public charter, which is when a public school converts over to a charter school. But it is still a public school, and the students and their performance still count towards the overall district grade.
So a public charter seems to be a little more restrictive than the other charters, because you all have to, when you become the new school term, will have to abide by all the rules and regulations of the normal district.
Yes, to a certain extent, conversion charters are more aligned in most cases to the public schools. You still have autonomy. One of the major differences is that private charters have complete autonomy, whereas conversion and public charters, we're still governed by the same state level rules and mandates as the public school.
That's what I was saying.
Yes, sir.
So if I had some questions about do I want a charter or not, I'd look at the history of private charters that are run by big business who comes in a community and says a few words. School boards usually pass them, and they are happy with them, and they do nothing for the children, and then they complain. Now, I understand that you all, when you start thinking this way, went to the community that you serve.
Absolutely.
And
We did go to the community, and I want to say that I work for this man. I work for Mr. Hundley, and I have found him to be among the most creative, caring, and capable individuals I've ever worked for. His heart and soul is educating our children and giving them an opportunity to be exposed to things so that their horizons are broader than they might get in a more conventional setting. What is probably the prime motivating force for him is to make sure that our children have a quality education and that they get a chance to go into some areas and venture out in some ways that they might not get if the community didn't have a greater say-so, and if the teachers didn't work or go that extra mile, so to speak, to provide for the children the kind of education that would make their lives better and give them a better chance of success than what happens in a conventional setting. And I finally want to say this, that Ed Hundley is not new at this. He is not new at this in the sense that he has, for a long time, had fomenting in him the desire to build this kind of a public charter construct for our children so that they could be successful. And I'd like for him to talk about the different academies that are going to be available when this charter does come into being.
okay, but before you do that, the real reason I wanted to invite you all here today
Yes.
is because I want to talk a little bit about what happens when a community decides that it wants to do for self. And when they do for self, sometimes you're doing for self what nobody else will do. And everybody says, well, I don't know, and then suddenly they go blank. But then when you speak out and say, we can do this. And so now, Principal Huntley, explain what it is that you foresee for this Lincoln Academy.
I see the community that you just referenced and the students, along with the staff, many of whom are alumni of the school, putting in the energy and the extra effort that it takes to do more. It's kind of, there's no way to catch up unless you either work harder or work longer. And so we have to do both. When you reference a community saying they'll take care of their own, we can not look forward, but look back. If we look at the heydays of a Booker High School, or we look at the heydays of Lincoln Memorial High School, what you had was, this was the school that you had to go to. But the key element there was that the staff was comprised mostly of members of the community that had neighborhood people, neighborhood teachers, vested interests. Now, I am a little unorthodox with my belief about cultural awareness, because it can be dangerous. Cultural awareness doesn't mean, or sensitivity doesn't mean I have to figure out what it's like to be poor and act that way and say, oh, this is the best that you can do, so let's do it. No, it's being aware of the elements that have you where you are, identifying those things that can move you to where you want to be, and then implementing them. That's the competence, being sensitive but proactive about making a change for the kids' situation. And that embodies what is about to happen with Lincoln Memorial Academy. We will give them the opportunity to go where they want to go.
I understand that there was a vote for members who were, families who were already at the school,
Absolutely.
if they wanted to convert to the new concept
Yes.
or stay as they were. And I also understand that 80% of the families said, we want to do this. We want to be a part of this groundbreaking school for our children. Now, it's important to let our viewers know that after all of that, it didn't just happen.
Yes.
What did you have to do? Because the school board had to ultimately make the decision, I understand.
Yes, it's a very comprehensive process. You just referenced the voting. From start to finish, it begins with a single soul deciding we should look into this process. Once that's decided, we had a parent and an employee who's also a parent initiate the investigation into the process. Let's look into it. Once you start that, you have to have a series of informational sessions for the community and the staff, because the staff also has to vote. You have these, you notify the district that this is something that you'll be looking into, and then you have informational meetings throughout. There's a liaison from the district that's assigned to the process for you to communicate with, and they oversee what takes place. Once you finish with the informational meetings, you then have to have a vote. It's there's a voting window. It's a secured ballot box. We had it under camera. It's a very comprehensive process. The statute requires 50% or more of the parents to support it and 50% or more of the teachers to support it. Ironically, as the principal, I didn't even get a vote. Teachers only. Teachers vote, parents vote. We had an overwhelming vote, both from parents and teachers. It was 80 is understating it. It was closer to 90 than 80 for the parents, and the teachers was somewhere 31 yes, 1 no, and 2 were so excited about their vote they invalidated it by writing something on the ballot instead of just putting it in. So there was only 1 actual no for the teacher vote. That's the beginning.
So you were directed by Florida statute.
Absolutely.
Wasn't written for this school at this time.
No.
These were statutes that are on the book.
They are absolutely in existence. There are now somewhere in the mid-20s the number of conversion charters in the state of Florida, and there was just recently a conversion charter prior to Lincoln. It was Rowlett Elementary School converted about 2.5 years ago. Mm-hmm. So once you're done with the voting, that's when the work begins.
Tell me about review committees and things that you have to have
Absolutely.
before you finally go to the school board and say, we're ready.
We're ready.
And that was a very extensive process. As Mr. Hundley has stated, I'm just interjecting because I attended the meetings. I have been and continue to be very excited about what we're doing. His leadership is very visionary, it's very bold, and it is, in my estimation, filled with a lot of compassion for these children. So there was an elongated review process, and of course Mr. Hundley can probably go into more specifics concerning that, but there was a very extensive review process.
Yes, we had to write an application, hundreds of pages. The application had to encompass the academic approaches of the school, what you will be doing that's different and innovative from other schools, how you had to demonstrate an ability to balance and manage your funds. You also had to show how you would recruit kids, which kids you would serve, how you're going to evaluate them, so on and so forth. Once that's done, and you have a time frame in which to get that done, you then submit it to that liaison, the charter school director from the district, from your district. It's called the sponsor, that's your district. That person, you have to provide them with 15 copies of your application along with a thumb drive with that on it. They take it, and in this case, give it to a panel of 15 people, all specialists in their area, finance, curriculum, you name it, special needs students education, every single facet of the application had an expert that vetted that section of the application. Once the vetting process is done, you go in for what's called a competency interview. They bring you in, you sit before that panel, and then any questions or concerns that they may have had with the application, they share with you at that time. You respond. If you can correct it or clear it up, you do so at that time. And then once that's done, they have to rate meets criteria, partially meets criteria, or does not meet criteria for every section of the application. If you meet the criteria in enough sections, they then recommend it to the superintendent for approval. Superintendent then does the same vetting process, and if they find that the application meets the requirements of the state, they recommend it for approval to the board.
Ah, the board.
Yes.
You know, in every process that we go through to get to the final conclusion, we end up with a board or a body or somebody who knows more than everybody before them. And let's be frank, the board passed it. There are 5 members on the board.
Yes.
And the board passed it 4-1. Now, and I would advise our viewers to go to the Manatee Board of Education site and look at the board meeting of August 22nd, I believe, and watch what happens. If you think Mr. Trump does things strange, you will find that one board member who did not vote for it saying stuff like, since you've passed it, game on. What game on? You're talking about the education of children. But now, you can say, I said that, and it's fake news. Or you can go look and see it for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And we continue, whether we are, especially when we begin to do things by us, for us, to run into opposition. But thank God that the board remained 4-1. Now, it was passed. And so that's why you can say that Lincoln Middle School will be Lincoln Academy starting at the beginning of the next school year. Now, community, you need to be the watchdogs. Not just the community of Lincoln Middle, but the community of Manatee County and all other people who are concerned. Because the board member, Mr. Hope, interesting last sounding name, Hope, doesn't seem to have much hope for Lincoln Academy. He has vowed to make it extra hard for them. He said some way they bamboozled, my words, bamboozled, whatever that means, the board. But we didn't have that kind of thing when Rowlett Middle School was transformed. But Rowlett serves a different population than the proposed Lincoln Academy was. And I'm sure Rowlett is doing a wonderful job.
Absolutely.
And everybody should have an opportunity to do the best that they can for all our children. Mm-hmm. Now, when a board member is so dissatisfied, it's interesting. Mr. Hope was an appointee to the school board by Governor Scott. Governor Scott is a person, as was Governor Jeb Bush not so long ago, who really believed in charter schools and reaching beyond the norm to make things better. But I'm preaching here now. Let me stop.
Let me just interject real quickly, and then I'll defer to Mr. Hundley, who is the real expert concerning this. We all know that throughout our community and throughout this country for many, many, many years, there's been what sociologists call this tendency toward paternalism from the majority culture. And because these school children, their parents, the staff, and the administration are outside what we might consider the traditional mode of those who would seek to build a public charter, somehow this board member and people like him feel that they have to take on this paternal role of guiding and pushing things in the right direction. Mr. Hunt is very capable. The staff is very competent. The parents knew what they were doing. This community wants to take control and have more of a vested interest in the development of these children. And so we're running against that old paternalistic kind of tendency that we always run against in our society when it comes to people from certain communities.
Which reminds me of going back in the early days of desegregation of schools in the South in general. And the white community largely started leaving the public schools, forming what we would call charter schools. Back then, those of us who knew better called them segregationist academies, because that's what they were. And then big business began to say, here's a new way to make money.
Yes.
And then they wanted to come in and start doing charter schools, and they took over. But the devil is in the details. It's important to understand that we are all in this mix together, whatever it is that we are doing when we talk about for the good and welfare of the children. How many years have you been in public education, Mr. Hunley?
I am hitting my 25th year.
How long have you been a principal in Manatee County?
I'm hitting my 15th year as principal in Manatee County.
So there it is, folks. You be the judge. Well, we got about 5 minutes left. What do you all want to say? Because this program is your opportunity to speak to our viewing audience.
I'm going to defer my time to him because he's so very good at this that I'd like for them to hear from him.
I want to make sure I thank Mr. McKenzie ahead of time for his wonderful accolades, but with regards to what we want to get out, our goal is to provide a tailored experience. It's not just the academics. Our students come with deficiencies in many cases that are no fault of their own. And we can either let those manifest themselves into issues that they face as adults, or we can address them. And I applaud and recognize the public school system. I've been a public school employee for my entire career. However, when I was charged with helping the Lincoln community, I go to work on helping the community, and it became very obvious that we needed to do something very different in order to make post-secondary education or successful careers viable, realistic opportunities for these kids. And that's what we're using this charter opportunity to do. I encourage anyone to come out to the school, find out what we're doing. We have what we're using is called the CALM framework. We developed a framework that focuses on college and career exposure, arts and athletics, leadership development, and municipal responsibility. We are making sure we educate the whole child. In fact, the full name of the school is Lincoln Memorial Academy Total Life Prep. It's not just college prep, it's not just career prep, it's total life prep. So we teach social skills, we teach leadership development, we teach problem solving. We extended the school day so that we can get these extra components in and still make sure we provide them with the academic rigor that they need to be successful in high school and beyond.
And the parents accepted the idea of extending the school day?
Overwhelmingly. We currently, just to show an example of making the adjustments to satisfy the needs of our population, typical middle schools in Manatee County start at 9:20 a.m. Students may be allowed on campus at 9:05. Lincoln has a large number of parents that are migrant workers. We have a large number of parents that have to start jobs early in the morning. So instead of our kids wandering or being home unattended, we modified some people's day in order to open our doors as early as 7:30 in the morning and give them structured and beneficial things to do every single day. We made that choice for our school because we needed to do that.
And I understand that all of the students at your school receive free or reduced lunch.
100%.
And somewhere around 20% of them are not English speakers.
Correct. And they go home to parents that are non-English speakers.
But you're working with all of that, and you believe that you can do this, not sit them off in a corner and forget them,
Yes.
but involve them.
Yes.
And I say that because I've seen that many times in many schools. And then when they drop out of something, then, oh, just another one dropped out. Well, as we close, the two of you coming and sharing, and I want to ask our audience, you monitor this school. It's important because, like some people are afraid of, this may be the first of many. And that can only happen if you're there.
Yes.
And as always, Suncoast, have a great day. The Newtown Farmers Market presents Big Mama's Collard Greens Festival, Cajun, Creole, Southern, and Caribbean-style foods, October 21st, 2017, 12 noon to 6 p.m., Robert L. Taylor Community Complex, 1845 John River Street, Sarasota, Florida. Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated presents a community health fair, where Robert L. Taylor Community Complex, 1845 34th Street, Sarasota, Florida, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., featuring health screenings, vision, dental, glucose, blood pressure, HIV, flu shots. Must be 18 years of age and bring an insurance card for your flu shot, breast self-exam, fitness, and nutrition. Free food, music, and raffles.
CashNet USA is trusted by over 2 million customers.
Perfect. When I lean back, I trust that you will be there to catch me.
Okay, bad idea, bad idea.
Apply now at CashNetUSA.com.
Money's on the way with CashNet USA.
Watch ABC7 wherever you are. Just search ABC7 on your streaming device to keep up with the Suncoast from the comfort of your couch. Download ABC7 now to watch us on TV anytime you want. ABC7, we're here for you wherever you are. Keep up with the Suncoast. Watch your favorite ABC7 shows on your streaming device.